Filmed live in Canada, it's Jim's Record Party. Yes, it is. Hello once again, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Jim's Record Party. I'm your host, James. It's so nice of you to be with us today as we'll be looking at RCA Victor Red Seal albums. Red Seal albums. What are they, you are asking? Well, they are just exactly what they say. We'll show some in a second. Bit of an evolution of the Red Seal label on RCA Victor, founded in 1902. I think they did some recording possibly a little earlier, but the first release in 1902. And this was the man who really they were banking on and who banked their success. Enrico Caruso, the greatest tenor who ever lived. And this album contains recordings back to 1904 through 1920. Now, originally, of course, all of these would have been on 78s. RCA Victor really, on the Red Seal label, brought the public to love records and to see how viable a record album was. Now, I'm using the term album, but again, we're speaking about 78s. And it was the RCA Victor Red Seal label that really brought recorded music into the popular culture. RCA Victor, Red Seal, RCA are really the people responsible for that from 1902 going forward. And really Enrico Caruso and then other classical artists especially, and then popular artists also would appear on the Red Seal label. And here are some Red Seals. On the album side of things, the long play record side of things, originally as really a crimson or perhaps burgundy color, solid color with a very small RCA Victor dog listening to the Victrola. We move to a much later label with the large balloon style lettering on RCA. This is a brighter red, and this red varied slightly over the years as well, but really it's mainly these two labels along with the coveted shaded dog label, and these are considered to be the tops of the pops, really the cream of the crop, with the shading behind the dog and the Victrola on the Red Seal label itself. These are considered to have a finer standard of mastering. The RCA Victor Red Seal shaded dog labels, and this is a beautiful example, ladies and gentlemen, from the Van Cliburn Favorite Chopin album, and we'll show that cover in a moment. First, we'll show some specials and some living stereos as well. This is an advanced copy of the Emil Gilels with Reiner and the Chicago Symphony, the Brahms Concerto No. 2. This would have been sent out to radio stations, record stores, etc. at the time, an advanced copy, not for commercial purchase. And here is the Van Cliburn. No, this is the Tchaikovsky Concerto No. 1, isn't it? With Konderschen. Living stereo. Now we're in the stereo era, where all the earlier ones would have been in mono, of course, on the 78s and the early LPs as well. Interestingly, RCA Victor came to the LP game a little late, in 1950. There's a beautiful Carlos Montoya living stereo. Originally founded by Columbia Records in 1948. And RCA Victor was losing money to Columbia because of this new format, which allowed you to put several songs on each side of an album. Therefore, the term long play, or LP, and shortened to album, of course. Here's a Charles Munch and the Boston Symphony Orchestra Bolero, an early living stereo shaded dog this would be. This is a beautiful, beautiful album here. Beautiful dramatic cover. A Rossini, interestingly, in living stereo. Rossini overtures by the Chicago Symphony, and again, Fritz Reiner makes it a very special recording. And finally, I'm dropping in here, Artur Rubinstein, living stereo, RCA Victor Red Seal, Rachmaninoff and the Liszt concertos. Beautiful cover of the master. And now we'll move on to some standard red seals, if such a term can be used. Early Arturo Toscanini, Brahms Symphony No. 2, early cover on this. Here we are, Van Cliburn, the Beethoven and Mozart. Now this is a Dyna groove. This is a later process again, which was touted at the time by RCA Victor, but was not favored really by the listening public. Here's my favorite Chopin by Van Cliburn. We showed the disc of this a little earlier. The great Texan pianist, Van Cliburn. And finally a disc with the great conductor of the Philadelphia, Eugene Ormandy, on your right, and Van Cliburn, of course. Here with the Grieg and the Liszt. Nice shot there. Now we move to a record I bought when I was in college in Boston. The Guarneri Quartet doing the Debussy and the Ravel string quartets. Beautiful recording here on Red Seal RCA. Lovely recording. Guarneri Quartet, beautifully handled on this. Beautiful, just so musical. Here to Roberta Peters. Roberta Peters, what a beautiful voice this lady has on an RCA Victor Red Seal. It's Bartok, again with Fritz Reiner and the Chicago. These are cherished albums. Another, the Brahms Violin Concerto with Jascha Heifetz. Chicago Symphony, directed by Fritz Reiner again. Nice illustration of the master, Johannes Brahms. Another by the great Fritz Reiner and the Chicago Symphony Orchestra. This is the Moskorsky Pictures at an Exhibition. This is a fantastic telling of that piece. And for this lot, it's a very young Seiji Ozawa here taking the mantle of the Chicago Symphony, and here doing the Pictures at an Exhibition. What a fitting cover. And our final armful of albums today, it's the Robert Shaw Chorale and Robert Shaw directing the Requiem Mass by Mozart. The greatest romantic pianist of the late 20th century, Vladimir Horowitz, homage to Liszt. and again on a treasured Beethoven, Waldstein, and Moonlight Sonatas, reading by the great master. Jose Iturbide, an actor, a musician, a bit of a bon vivant in the style of Arthur Rubinstein. Music to remember. Jose Iturbide. Charles Ives, a bit of a muddle this cover, I think, but great composer, Charles Ives. All on RCA Victor Red Seal, ladies and gentlemen. Here's the master, Arthur Rubinstein, playing Grieg. Mario Lanza, well represented. These are just a couple of the samplings, and as with the Rubinstein, I believe all of his are on RCA Victor Red Seal. Mario Lanza. And from his dramatic turn in the great Caruso dramatic retelling of Enrico Caruso's life and career, starring Mario Lanza. Two by the great Bach interpreter Wanda Landowski. This is from book 2 of The Well-Tempered. First and the second. These are all classical records we're showing today. Ladies and gentlemen, there are popular albums. The popular music of the time was also found on RCA Victor Red Seal. Chet Atkins and others were no stranger to the label. Here's Arthur Rubinstein again. Beethoven's Concerto No. 5. Very photogenic. Igor Stravinsky, here with Seiji Ozawa again, directing the Chicago Symphony. It's the Rite of Spring. Here the master, Peter Tchaikovsky, of course. Pierre Monteux directing the Boston Symphony Orchestra in the Symphony No. 4 by Tchaikovsky. And here's the great man himself, Pierre Monteux, Symphony No. 5 by Tchaikovsky. The Boston Symphony Orchestra on an RCA Victor Red Seal. Great tenors sing Neapolitan songs, Caruso to Lanza, fittingly. And finally, our last choice today on Jim's Record Party, it's Tomita, ladies and gentlemen. His greatest hits also appeared on RCA Victor Red Seal label. Much more contemporary at the time cover. Well, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. This brings us to the end of another side of Jim's Record Party. It's been so nice to have you with us today as we've looked at the RCA Victor Red Seal albums and the Living Stereo albums. Very famous albums. Keep your eyes open for those, ladies and gentlemen. Always a thrill to find one. Very special albums, especially the Shaded Dog labels. Beautifully, beautifully mastered, beautiful sound. I know you'll enjoy them. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, once again for joining us. Please comment, like, and subscribe. I'm your host, James, as always. Please join us again next week at this same time on this same station as we look at more great, rare, interesting, and important albums here on Jim's Record Party.